Hey, welcome to Cracking Code with Dave. I wanted to show you a little bit of SwiftUI. And what is SwiftUI? Well, it's Apple's new way of making apps, basically. SwiftUI, according to Apple, is a modern way to declare user interfaces by Apple platform. Beautiful, dynamic apps. It gives you views, controls, layout structures for declaring your app's user interface. Basically, it's different than we used to do with storyboards and whatnot. Let me show you. Create a new Xcode project. Now the first thing you got to do is, we want to make an app. It's an iOS app. Click the next. I'm going to call this, I'll just call it SwiftUI First Look. And make sure you choose SwiftUI here for the interface, not storyboard. And it should be in Swift programming language. That is it. Click next. And I'll just throw that on the desktop. Okay, let's take a look at Xcode here and see what we got. So the first thing you'll notice is that there's no main storyboard here. There's a launch screen storyboard, so when the app launches, the launch screen happens, but there's actually no main.storyboard, nor will you be using one. So there's the info plist, there's the app delegate, scene delegate, all that's normal assets, but there's this new thing called content view. And inside of content view, you'll see there's two structures here, right? Structure content view and structure content view previews. Now previews, this just drives the preview over here. So you can even comment this out. I don't actually use preview in mine, but that's because I've got an old laptop and it doesn't like the preview. It kind of taxes my old laptop. But if you uncomment that and click the resume button up here, then if everything's in line, then you should get an automatic preview of your app over here. So it's kind of cool. It's like a real-time preview of the app, what it's going to look like. There you go. Even in this contemporary laptop, it took a while for that to load. So here we go. It says Hello World. And you'll see this text is live. So if I edit that, then see it updates the actual app over here. And this is what the phone would actually look like. So let's take a look at how this is created. So SwiftUI looks a little different, right? There's this thing, everything's a view in SwiftUI. Everything's a view. This text is a view. This view is inside of views, inside of views. Okay, so there it is. It's live. I've already edited some text. It did say Hello World. You'll see if I put the W in, see it's actually updating over here as I'm typing. And SwiftUI uses a lot of this dot notation after the view. So let's say you make a text view here, like we have, and you want to add a color to it. You would do it after. So you can actually, you can do it like this. Just put the dot after this padding and just kind of string a bunch of dot notation afterwards. Or, and I just usually type color because I can't remember what it's called. Oh yeah, foreground color is what we want. Or you can, and I'm going to make that dot red. Or if it starts getting kind of messy, you can put a new line in and it would still be legit. So that way you can kind of line your subscript functions after the view. So these are kind of like methods to run on the view up here. And you'll see we have a text view, and you'll see here's the preview. And the preview here is actually kind of interactive a little bit. You can actually click on it, and you can add padding to either side. You can change the alignment. You can change the color. And you'll see as we're doing that, it's adding the code in over here, which is pretty neat. What I'm going to do is I'll center align this, and I want to kind of embed this inside of another view. I'm going to actually hold down Command and click on it, and that gives me some other options up here. And I want to embed it inside of a H stack. So I'll tell you about that in a second. You'll see what it is in a moment here. So I'm embedding it inside of another view called an H stack. And then let me just take this hello text. I'm going to get rid of all the customization for now. This is all you need. And I'm going to copy and paste a bunch of these text views in. So one there, make a line, make a line. So let's do 3. Let's give it a second to catch up. Okay, cool. So again, you can add padding, and that's how it was originally set up. And that'll put a little bit of a buffer between this one and these ones. You can add spacers even. Spacers another thing you can add, and that'll it'll kind of try to extend all of the space on one side. So it slides everything over. Okay, so you'll see that as you add the dot notation, it affects the view above it, if that makes any sense, hopefully. So for instance, I'll make this the foreground color again, and I'll make it dot blue. And you'll see the spacing inside of here. The actual spacing doesn't really, of course, matter. What does matter is the code and whatnot. So see, this is a horizontal stack. And to do this in the old method, you'd have to drag labels out. You'd have to connect the labels with IB outlets. You'd have to add constraints and stuff. And so you can see that SwiftUI is kind of like trying to make things a little bit easier for everyone. So I'm going to delete these extra little paddings and colorings. And then I just want to show you something else here. So I'm going to take the spacer out even, and then I'll put it back in the middle here. Now, if we wanted to list these items vertically, then instead of embedding them in a H stack, which is a horizontal stack, we change that to a V stack. And then, they're all vertically aligned there. So you see, you end up building your app kind of in this way. You put them inside of stacks, horizontal stacks, V stacks. There's also another one called a Z stack. Now, a Z stack stacks things on top of each other. What I'll do is I'll select the top one here, and then maybe I'll put some padding on one side. See, it slides it over a little bit, so you can see they're kind of layered on top of each other there. Kind of handy. This is handy if you want to put a background image behind your thing, or you want to put text in front of an image, like a label for text. So you can see this is all kind of very different than we're used to. Requires a little bit of getting used to. The cool thing about storyboards is you can be very granular and very specific about everything. It takes extra time, but you'll specify exactly where you want everything, how you want it to function. Whereas SwiftUI, you just say, hey, I want a text view. Hey, I want an image there. Hey, and SwiftUI will try to guess and as far as the layout. And the reason is because when you develop for SwiftUI, you're developing for all devices. SwiftUI is cross-platform, so iPhone, iPad, even the Apple Watch, possibly the computer in the future when they release the next version of the Mac, it's going to be able to run apps. So the idea is that you build it once and it scales for all devices. That's the idea behind it. And it's not perfect yet, and it's not completely fleshed out, so there's some things that are still kind of missing with SwiftUI. But I've released 2 apps now using SwiftUI. I've converted 2 of my actual apps to SwiftUI apps. The one that's I just released most recently is called AV-Aid. It's an audiovisual test generator, but it's all completely in SwiftUI. And you can actually mix and match and load some bits of a regular UI kit. You can mix and match some of UI kit in with SwiftUI as well. So you don't have to go all in. There's a bunch of different things that you can generate here other than text fields, of course. There's buttons. So you can make a button. There's an image. You can make images. You can make text fields as opposed to like the text label there. You can make a list. A list is kind of like it's like a table view in SwiftUI. I mean in UIKit. Spacers, and there's in addition to all these different objects, there's actually all kinds of different views as well. There's like navigation views. There's tab views. So let's go ahead. I'm going to comment this out for a moment because that's not exactly how you would create those items. And let's make some stuff, right? So let's just tool around a little bit in SwiftUI. So let's do this. Let's make a tab view. So a tab view is kind of like what we're used to, where there's like Facebook or one of those apps. They've got a bunch of tabs at the bottom of the app. And let me show you how to do that in SwiftUI. It's pretty simple, actually. You just type out tab view and throw some curly braces in. Now I'm going to comment this VStack out just for a moment while we do this. So inside of this tab view, we're going to need a couple different views, right? Let's just say page 1, page 2. So let's do this. Let's just make a new page, new file, Swift. not Swift, we want SwiftUI view. Call it page 1. And let's do another one. File, new file, SwiftUI view, page 2. Now you could have just typed all this code out, this code inside of the first content view here, but let's try to keep it a little bit clean from the get-go, and we're just going to do this. We're just going to say page 1 and make it, and then page 2 and make it. Okay, it's however, it is a tab item, so it's an item in the tab list. It's got a special thing called tab item, and I want to give it a label of some kind. So let's just throw some text in there for now. We can put an icon in there later. I'll just say page 1. I'm just lazy, so I'm going to copy this down here, and it's going to be called page 2. Okay, let's see what we got. Zoom out a little bit with the zoom button, and yeah, you can see down here at the bottom there's page 1, page 2. I'm going to put another thing in there though, because it's not very, you know, usually when you have this kind of item you have like an image there. So I'm going to put a little image above the text there, and so to do that, no big deal, you just say image, and the image is named. Actually, I'm going to do a system image, so I don't have to actually drag an image there. I'm just going to do an image that I know is already kind of like a part of, it's already available to you, and it's called heart. System name, heart. Oh, it's actually not capital H, it's like a lowercase h. There it is. And let's throw another one in there. I bet you anything. I'm not sure, but I bet you anything there's like one called star or circle or something like that. So let's try a star. Yep, they have a star. Okay, so let's see here. Now, I don't think this is interactive yet, so I'm going to actually just run this in the simulator just to see if it clicks between the two pages. But just to make sure that the pages are different in some way, because this one just says hello world, I'm just going to say this one says hello page 1, and then this one I'm going to change to hello page 2. Okay, and then I'm selecting a simulator up here, just like we would normally do, instead of this one here. You'll notice sometimes when you do complicated things, it'll pause the updating. I would just let it do that. That's cool. You can force it to not pause, but it's trying to save your laptop and make it happier. So we'll let it pause if it's having a hard time. Okay, here we go. Hello page 1. Click down here. Hello page 2. Look at that. So that was pretty easy to create a tab bar controller in SwiftUI. Now, what if we want on page 2 to have like a list, like kind of like a table view of sorts? First, we're going to need some data. Now, data is a little bit different in SwiftUI. SwiftUI, in all the training that I've seen, they want you to kind of put all of your data in one source of truth, and everything points at that source of truth, and then all of your views update based on the source of truth. So you'll write your logic based on the data for your view to look a certain way. It's a little bit different than I'm used to, but once it's set up, it's really cool. I'm not going to do that right now. A data demonstration in this would take a long time, but in future episodes, I'll definitely go over the different ways of sharing data across SwiftUI. They only released SwiftUI like a year ago, right? So this is all kind of new for everyone. So we'll just make a variable up here, and we'll call it users. And I'm going to just assign it to like basically like an array of strings. And so we've got this array of strings, right? Let's say we want to show them in kind of like a list formation there. Let's get rid of this text for now, and we'll just have a list, right? So I'm going to write list here, and we'll put it in the curly braces. And then we're going to do kind of like a for loop for it. It's like SwiftUI's version of a for loop. So let's take a look at this crazy new for loop, right? We're saying there's a list, and for every user, we're going to use itself to identify each user. And the user is something new we created, and in sets you up for this next line here. and then we're saying text, and we're going to load in the user's text in there. So this is one way to make a for loop and return back a list of items in an array. Let's simulate this and see what happens. See, look at that. We got a table view all ready to go. We didn't have to do app delegate stuff. We didn't have to connect the table view. We didn't have to drag and drop and click and drag and whatnot. We just said, hey, we want a list, and for every user, do this thing. And you can even do stuff like and once this trailing closure, I'm going to simplify this a little bit. I'm going to say there's this function called delete and do it. And there's not yet, but we'll make a function down here called delete. So there's the delete function it was wanting, something like that. Well, it's not very happy with that. Let me change my variable up here. All right, we're going to have to make this at state. So this is something new. So I added this at state thingy up here. Let's see what happens when we ask more questions about this. A property wrapper. Okay, it's a property wrapper type that can read and write a value managed by SwiftUI. So at state is when you want data to be updated, and you want to monitor the state of that data. In this case, we want to monitor the state of these users, so that way when we update them and remove something down here, it's instantly updated. Now, I use at state quite a bit because it's going to manage the source of truth and update a view. It'll update the local view, and you can also bind it to a second view, okay? But you can't bind it to like 20 views. So if you're looking at publishing some data across your whole site, then state is not not the wrapper you want. You want something else. You want an environmental wrapper. You might want an observed object. And we'll have to get into data management some other video because that could take a long time. But essentially, state is when you want to monitor a toggle switch or a little piece of data on a view, and maybe one other view references it, but that's about all. So now that I've added that error went away, and it's much happier. And now let's run this code. It's still like very little amount of code for what we get, right? Here's page 1 again. Flip over to page 2. And see, now we've got this delete option here. And you can just slide to delete an object. It automatically updated the array back here. I mean, you might want a title up here. You might want it to look more like a navigation view. So that's easy enough, actually. You just go above here, list, and just type navigation view. Navi. Okay, I'm going to highlight all this. Actually, I'm going to select everything now. It's getting a little bit janky looking, so I'm going to re-indent it so it looks a little cleaner now. So I put it inside of a navigation view. Let's put a navigation title at the top so you can kind of see. So I'm just going to type title here until it auto-populates. And we'll put the title is going to be family members. Build and run. Command R is build and run, if you don't know. Now you know. And skipping over to page 2, it didn't show up, huh? I'm going to change the foreground color to blue just in case that's what's going on. So that's interesting. It changed the foreground color to everything in here. Now what I'm wondering is, maybe I gotta throw it inside of here. Let's build and run it again. There we go. Aha. So it's meant to go inside of the navigation view, not outside of the navigation view. So that's the deal. So a heck of a lot of functionality just with a little bit of code. This is just, I just wanted to give you an eyes-on of SwiftUI just to take a quick look and see kind of how you can start to build things. Let's, we already put an image in here, but let's actually throw an image inside of page 1. So we'll go to page 1 here. Actually, I can show you something else too. If we go to the, let's open up that canvas again. And the canvas will show us the simulated version of it. You can actually still use this plus symbol here, the object library, to drag things on there, which I didn't know about because I don't use this simulation much. But I'm going to throw an image in here. We'll just throw it up above there. I see. You have to actually be very specific about how and where you drag it. You can't just drag it anywhere here. You got to say, I'll have the image above the text, please. And you'll see there it threw it over here. And let's resume our simulation here so we can see the image. Now, there might actually not be an image there because there's no image dragged in. So let's throw an image in the assets really quick. I'll just screenshot myself here. And go to desktop. And throw myself in the image there, and I'll just put Dave down for that. And back over on page 1, I'm going to say image is actually Dave. And there we go. There I am. And you'll see it's stretched all the way to the edges. And so, of course, you can add some padding in if you want. You can be very specific. You can actually get pretty specific with the design, although it's a lot more difficult to get specific. It prefers you to kind of just let it handle some of the design work. You'll notice that didn't really help much. You have to. There's something else called Resizable, I believe, with Resizable. It has to happen before the padding, I believe. So order is also important. The order of these modifiers is really important. So sometimes you want to like put corners on the edges of an image, for instance, and you'll see now it's resizable and it's all stretching out. So you can change the aspect. Dot fit. So I'm going to change the aspect ratio to fit. And let's build and run it again, see what it looks like. Notice I'm not using the auto preview here. I don't know. I don't like to wait for it. Impatient. Okay, so now you see I've got some padding, and it's resized to aspect ratio. And I also want to throw some corners on there. And corner radius of 5, we'll say. See how that works. Play. And you see it's got little rounded edges there. Now the order, like I was saying, is really important. For instance, if I put the corner radius after the padding, then you might not actually see it. Because it might... Yeah, see, pointy. I'll make it 10 just so it's a little more obvious. So yeah, it's got pointy edges, and you'll see if I throw the padding after the corner radius, then it should work again. See? So when you're putting in these modifiers, just be mindful of the order. If something's not working right, then you might want to switch them around or turn certain modifiers off by commenting them out for the time being, just to see how it would look another way. Well, here we go. It's our final app. It's looking pretty good, folks. So hopefully this was a little bit of a nice introduction to SwiftUI. It's not brand new. It's been out for about a year now. And again, I've released 2 apps in SwiftUI. I'm really enjoying it, but it does take some real getting used to if you're used to doing things the old way. But this is, you know how Apple is. Once they come up with a new thing, they really stick with it. So chances are this is going to be continuing forward for Apple. So tune in more. I'll get into more SwiftUI in the future for sure, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what it kind of looks like and kind of how it works.